Is it over?
At long last. No king rules forever, my son.
I see.
Let's talk about data. Who loves talking about data? Laymen Gamon, that's what we're here for. Let's talk about
Data scientists.
Data scientists right here. Let's talk about World of Warcraft. Let's talk about Final Fantasy, player numbers. That's what you're here for. It's going to be one of those heavy meme episodes.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride for World of Warcraft, for Final Fantasy, also for Elder Scrolls Online. I think they're the big three MMOs going right now. Maybe also like Guild Wars 2, probably a few others, like the Korean...
They're the big three.
Black Desert Online, whatever else.
Some
but
Korean MMOs, I'm sure.
But those are big three, and I think in particular World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy are really interesting to compare given their different journeys that they've taken over their life cycle and where those games are at right now. Data on that isn't it data, by the way. Data, as we say in Australia. Data is really hard to find.
Totally.
Should we just do the whole thing in a Cali accent?
We should try that one day.
So, data from those two games, very hard to track down, but we did manage to find some, in particular one source last night, which we unearthed.
Yes.
Full detective mode.
I think we did a bit of a Detective Pikachu there, but we got some data. We got some data for you. Let's talk about it after the drop.
Now, as everyone knows, World of Warcraft was the first MMO.
It was the big daddy, people.
It was. Now, there are rumors that there were other MMOs before World of Warcraft, but this is, of course, fake news.
Yeah.
It's a conspiracy theory pushed on you by the liberal media, trying to convince you that that's true. It's not. It's a complete lie.
EverQuest and RuneScape, they never existed.
It's like Flat Earth, man.
Have you ever met someone that actually played those games?
No.
No.
They don't exist.
What I think we should do is we need to storm EverQuest HQ.
Would you say we need to raid it, Sam?
I think we need to raid it.
We need to raid EverQuest servers?
EverQuest 51. That's what we need to do, people.
But obviously, World of Warcraft has been the biggest deal in the MMO genre ever since it launched. 14 years ago now, thereabouts, just completely taking the world by storm. It achieved a peak subscriber base of 12 million or 13 million active subscriptions.
2011 or something like that?
Something like that, which was just ridiculous. Like, it was the game of the time back then. And ever since then, it's been in sort of a decline. Definitely a decline, you might say.
Definitely.
There have been other games that have come along, tried to nip at its heels.
I mean, look, let's face it. Lord of the Rings, okay? It was so popular, it went free to play. That's when you know you're killing it in the gaming industry. We're making billions, have it all for free.
Star Wars The Old Republic
also went free to play.
That's right. Also was so
went free to
popular
play.
They went free to play.
Yeah.
WildStar, so popular it just got deleted, right? Just gone.
Elder Scrolls, okay.
Elder
Scrolls is doing pretty well, actually. It's hard to really know if we can trust that community because the Bethesda community also said that Fallout 76 is good, okay? So it's hard to know if they know what they're talking about.
I think it's just that yelling guy at the front of the Bethesda crowd. He just has like 2 million ESO accounts.
Let me see your war face.
That's so true.
He's the one just propping it all up. But the whole landscape's changing considerably, and I think the most interesting story across the whole MMO scene right now is Final Fantasy XIV. I'm currently playing it on Twitch, by the way, so shout out to my Twitch channel.
Definitely
Go
not. It
follow
won't
me on
be in
Twitch.
the link in the description, everybody.
Correct. So
Okay.
I'm playing it right now. It's a fascinating game to play through because it's got a lot of problems for its first 100 hours, and then it gets fucking awesome after that, right? But this game has been on an even larger journey because it was actually kind of like deleted and then brought back to life.
I've never seen a game that's done that. They're like, hey, is this thing on, everyone? We're going to be destroying this game. A giant moon is going to crash into the actual game and destroy it. You know what they did? They Majora's Mask.
They did. The details of this are that the game was in such a poor state at launch that after a number of years or whatever, they said, listen, we just have to rebuild this thing from the ground up. And they literally got a big moon that got larger and larger every patch. And when it arrived at the planet, it opened up like a big egg, and inside was Bahamut, who's one of like the Final Fantasy summon creatures.
GFs.
And just destroyed the world. And then the game could start again with like new environments, new story, new characters, new everything, new music. It was an entirely reborn experience, hence the name A Realm Reborn.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty risky for any game to be like, hey, we're going to completely destroy this and just like rebuild it, and we expect our community just to hold on for dear life.
It was,
I mean, risky, but it kind of paid off.
It was really
did pay off.
It was the inspiration that Todd used when he decided to make Fallout 76
and Anthem.
And
Anthem.
that's right, BioWare with Anthem.
Yes,
they
of
both looked
course.
at, they're calling Yoshi P up like, are we doing this right? Like we really made a shitty product. Are we ready for the rebuild process? You know, that game obviously has been going from strength to strength over the years as it has been releasing new expansions. Heavensward was the first, which I just finished, amazing expansion. Stormblood, which I'm just about to begin, and then Shadowbringers, which we'll come to later because the Metacritic on that is very interesting to discuss. But over that time, data for these two games, data. It's difficult to really get a handle on how these two games are performing. World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy.
Because we haven't really seen any player numbers since 2015 for WoW. Okay?
Correct. They stopped releasing them.
It's very crazy, right? I don't understand how this happens. A lot of games have this same symptom, right? They start not doing too well. They lose the data. They just don't know where it is. They can't release it to the audience. No one knows how well or bad a game is going. And World of Warcraft is sadly also has that affliction at the moment.
Let's talk about the data that we do have, and let's see what we can glean from that, right? First of all, let's talk about World of Warcraft, and let's see how many copies of Battle for Azeroth were sold at launch. And we have this data because Blizzard actually put it out. They sold 3.2 million copies at launch for Battle for Azeroth, which is obviously huge. That's a big result.
Huge.
It's huge result. Best sale ever. Fantastic. You can't take that away from World of Warcraft for achieving those sorts of numbers, so well done them. In terms of how many people stuck with the game, that's where we see some pretty sharp drop-off. There was a leak that happened at the end of 2018 that suggested that there were about 1.7 million active WoW subscriptions, excluding China. And this was gained from China. This was gained from basically a change to the API that Blizzard made that allowed people to see this data. And they quickly plugged that gap and they tried to nothing to see here, everyone, nothing to see here.
And they sold 3.2 million actually when Battle for Azeroth came out on the first day. So that is pretty much where we're looking at the numbers.
It sounds about right, that level of drop-off.
Sure.
Especially when you look at how much people hate Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah, and a lot of people like us, you jump on because you used to play this game 10 years ago and you just jump on for the expansions and see how it is after a week or so. You don't play anymore.
Correct.
A lot of those numbers would have been filled by those kind of people.
Correct. But if we look at the Metascore for Battle for Azeroth, very interesting. It achieved a 79 Metacritic rating from critics.
3 user score, everybody.
Which is the same territory as Anthem and Fallout 76.
Yeah. I don't actually think World of Warcraft has ever received such a bad number. That's when it's new territory for them.
It is.
It is new territory.
It's new lows.
It really is.
It's so it's very sad. I'm currently playing that game, so I can sort of speak about it, and I will tell you that it's not great.
Yeah. Look, I played hundreds of hours of World of Warcraft back in the day. But
hundreds.
I reckon I played 200 or 300 hours. But apart from that, I haven't played it really for years.
Yeah.
You know?
Look, it hasn't evolved in the right ways. Let's just say that. It's over its 14-year life cycle. It's evolved in all the wrong ways. And I just feel like this is the expansion where all of that's caught up to it, right? Let's contrast that with Final Fantasy XIV and the numbers we have on hand for that. We know just before Shadowbringers launched, we had 16 million copies sold or active accounts, okay? So some of those can be free-to-play trial as well, right? So 16 million accounts, that's pretty impressive, but it doesn't tell us anything about subscribers, right? We can look at Steam charts, and we can see that there's basically 22,000 people per day on Steam playing Final Fantasy.
Yep.
That's a lot.
If we look at actually, where that's fitting, that's about the 16th most popular game on Steam.
Yep.
It is a subscription-based MMO. I mean, it's not like, it's kind of niche in a way,
for sure.
To see those kind of numbers is pretty impressive.
And don't forget, that doesn't include anything that's not Steam for Final Fantasy, and there's two ways to play it, which is through their own launcher or through PlayStation 4. It's available on consoles, which again, something that's not available to World of Warcraft, they're not available on consoles. So, that's already some interesting data in itself. When we look at Metacritic scores, things get really wild. Because this is a true story, right? Shadowbringers, the latest expansion of Final Fantasy XIV, is the highest rated game of the year, equal to Resident Evil 2 and Sekiro. That is nuts. Like an MMO expansion going toe-to-toe with those two games. I think one of the most interesting data points in all of this, which just came out last night, I just saw it on Twitter, and I thought it was fascinating. There's a website called WoW Logs, and they also run FF logs, basically. The way this works is that when you're raiding in these games, you can install a program on your PC that will upload your raid performance data to this website so you can see how much DPS you're doing, how much healing you're doing. You can break down the fights to see what's going on, etc. Very, very useful tools. Fantastic websites. Cannot live without them. Any serious raider in World of Warcraft is using WoW Logs, almost without exception.
Definitely.
For the very first time, the creator of FF Logs and WoW Logs tweeted out that they were seeing equal traffic on their site for Final Fantasy as for World of Warcraft. They're seeing the same number of logs being uploaded for both of those. That's amazing.
Look, I look at that and go, that is, look, it's an accurate number to look at if you're wanting to find out hardcore players, how many hardcore players are actually playing Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft. That's where I see that in terms of really giving a strong indication of that community in terms of the hardcore space.
I think the hardcore players, and I do think if you're using WoW logs, you're probably a hardcore player.
I mean, a casual
and
just
FF
wouldn't do
logs.
that kind of stuff.
I think your hardcore player base is a very strong indication of overall how strong your game is. And I think there's going to be a strong correlation between your number of hardcore players and your number of casual players. I think there's going to be some proportional relationship. I'm sure it's the same across both games. Yeah. And to see Final Fantasy achieve parity with World of Warcraft, that's very big.
It's the first time in 14 years, I think, that World of Warcraft is actually going to have a competitor. Someone that really can actually not only clip at their heels, but maybe take over. And if someone says, what's the biggest MMO? They're going to start thinking Final Fantasy, which is going to be a giant change in the industry for MMOs. You know?
And just a few things as well on this data. There are some differences. Obviously, Final Fantasy raids in this instance are 8 people. They do have larger raids, but the ones they're talking about here are 8 people. WoW raids can be anywhere from 10 to 40.
Oh no, they took
people.
That. No, they took that back,
there is a difficulty with 40 people.
Oh, they brought that back.
LFR, etc.
Okay. Yeah.
So look, there's lots of different variables that shake out within this, but at the end of the day, WoW just launched its new raid tier, and just this week or last week, all of the difficulties became available. Final Fantasy just launched its raid tiers, and the hardest difficulty becomes, or not the hardest, but the next difficulty tier becomes available next week. Yeah. So it's a perfect time, a perfect moment in time to compare these two games, because both of them have just launched raid content, and you're seeing equal performance.
But I also think it's important to mention that Battle for Azeroth came out nearly a year ago. Now, Shadowbringers just came out. It'd be interesting to see. Now, I know that we're seeing that the WoW logs and the FF logs are matching up at the moment, but it's hard to really know if they would, in fact, match up if both expansions came out at the same time. I think now, because there's a bit of hype with Shadowbringers and the hype from Battle from Azeroth has slowly declined, that's also given Final Fantasy a little bit of a leg up in terms of now being able to compete.
Yeah,
you know?
I do agree with that point, but I also, there's another point to consider with this, is that right now, Shadowbringers, people are just starting to pay attention to Final Fantasy. People like myself only just started playing it. We've just started to notice this game, and to be able to get to the point where I can raid in Shadowbringers takes about 300 hours. A lot of people like myself are going to be on that journey right now. So I do feel as though this gap, I think it's going to get larger. I think you're going to start seeing more logs uploaded, not just parity, but I think Final Fantasy will overtake it, because there are going to be more players reaching the end game in Final Fantasy when people are leaving World of Warcraft in droves right now, because people fucking hate that game.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows when we're going to see the next major expansion? So it could be a next year or two of a dry spell, where people are just more and more hearing how great Final Fantasy is. The Metacritic scores are coming in. It's really well. It's been well received. The user scores not great for Battle for Azeroth. It could be just a domino effect, and more. And by the time their next expansion comes out, the tide may have moved on too much for World of Warcraft, but we just don't know.
For sure. But look, I would say overall, I'm playing Final Fantasy now. I put about 180 hours into it. I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. The first 100 hours kind of sucked, I won't lie, but the last 80 hours have been absolutely superb. I cannot wait for the future of it. So glad to see a game like this is doing well, and the MMO genre is getting this kind of resurgence. Hopefully it continues. Guys, that's the episode. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch if you want to check out Final Fantasy for yourself. We'll leave a link in the description below.
It's going to be a mystery link. It could be to his stream. It could be to some other website. You'll have to figure out. Click on the link below and find out.
We'll see you in the next episode.
See you later.